Let's have a look at bodies. You may not want to hear some of this, but if it's not happening right now to your little ones, it's about to. So what you're going to see in this age group is a steady increase in this large muscle development and weight gain, and therefore a bit of an increase in strength. You're going to be seeing growth spurts. This generally starts a bit earlier for girls, but it tends to last longer for boys, who then often end up taller and broader. So body proportions change. Females tend to widen at the hips and boys across the chest and shoulders. And up until now, really, age 9, 10, both of the sexes have looked similar, but this is going to start to change. Your little ones may also complain of joint pain, and these growing pains are real because things are happening so quickly for them in their small bodies. You're going to see very active children with a lot of energy. They really can't seem to sit still. The things that your children may not like are that hair is going to start to grow in places they might not want it to grow. They're going to look more like adults than little children when this starts to develop. That underarm hair will go alongside body odor, and that awareness that you might like to talk to them about start using deodorant on a regular basis. Skin starts to become oilier, and those dreaded spots will start to appear. For some, this may be next to nothing and hardly worth noting, and others are going to experience bad acne or body shaming. And sometimes this is going to lead to that drop in self-esteem and confidence that we quite often see around this age. And we're going to come back to that later in the session. But can you imagine or even remember how scary this can seem? Their bodies are changing so quickly, and they're expected just to accept, adapt, and get on with it. It's a part of life. Well, yes, it is a part of life. But sometimes as adults, we struggle with things that are a part of life. And hopefully we know where to ask for help and support. So it's important that our children and young people are able to air their worries and concerns and get the help and support that they need. And this is where you come in. If you've been to any of our sessions before, you'll know that we talk about communicating all the time and really getting to know your child, because that's actually the answer to a lot of dilemmas and difficulties that you'll face as a parent. We always encourage and stick by the thing that if you don't know your child, how are you going to know when something's not right? But how will you know what's normal when it's changing every day? So any of you that will have done any kind of psychology work or looked at your older child's homework will recognise this pyramid on your screens now as being based on Maslow's hierarchy of need. So Abraham Maslow proposed this theory way back in 1943, but it's just as relevant today as it was then. So the whole idea is very simple. It's basically that these needs lower down the pyramid must be satisfied before individuals can look at the needs higher up. So if a child's basic needs are not being met, they're going to have little or no opportunity to reach their potential. So there's a lot of evidence about why children who live in poverty don't do well at school. And if you bring it back to this pyramid, it's really obvious, isn't it? If they're worried where their next meal is coming from or where they're going to sleep that night, how are they going to focus on a maths project? So I just want to take a couple of minutes to remind us all about looking at that basic bottom line of the pyramid. So food, water, warmth, and rest. So I'm going to ask you to think about these basics before anything else. Is breakfast available in your house? Is their bed and duvet clean and comfortable? And this is where nurture really does play a huge part in all of this. It's the little tiny things that can make a huge difference. So a lot of your children now will start living in their bedrooms more, and some of these bedrooms will be an absolute state. I know that. But a few very simple things like making their bed for them or opening a window can make them feel so much better. I appreciate at times you might not want to do this. If they're making the mess, why should you be cleaning it up? But we all know that feeling, don't we, of getting into, a clean made bed when you've just washed the sheets, when you've had a rough day, how good that feels. And our children sometimes really need this feeling too. Don't forget that your children do still want to spend lots of time with you. Of course, they're on their phones or their laptops and they're playing games and they're talking to their friends and they're watching YouTube and they're eating snacks and still trying to tell you that they're doing their homework. But they are still looking to you for guidance. So let them copy you, role model having water with you, role model taking time out to do something that you like and making your bed in the mornings. If we come on to food, it's easy, isn't it, to think about sitting round the table, a dining table, if you even have got one, and sharing that meal. But this seems to have become a bit of a luxury that we've all lost in a lot of families. Some of the reasons is just the pace of life. You and your children have so many competing demands on your time that it is hard to find an hour each evening when you can all be together. So we suggest taking that pressure off a little bit. Maybe try once a week, once a fortnight to eat as a family. It really will have an impact. Try and find that one night and commit to it. Mark it on your family calendar. Maybe ask a different member of the family each week to plan the meal. Get them to plan the shopping list, to lay the table, to help with the preparation. Your family is a team. It's that shared responsibility. It doesn't have to be just down to you. TikTok is full of great recipe ideas that your child might want to share with you. But actually, even 3 or 4 different microwave meals sat on the sofa, eaten at the same time, is something. One of the positive side effects of sharing family meals is that it allows everyone out there to feel valued and appreciated. That's a really core need for children that you have managed to find an hour to give them. It's that emotional warmth that they need, that you want to spend time with them. And finally, on that bottom rung is rest. So we know that as our children get nearer to the teenage years, they need more sleep. And our advice is to let them. Unless there's a real need for them to be out of bed in the morning, like school, just let them sleep. You and they feel so much better for it. One of the best ways to understand what's happening is to have this awareness. So we've touched on physical changes, but what about the emotional? We can see physical changes, can't we, in our children? And we can understand how these changes lead to clumsiness, tiredness, and those real growing pains. But how about when they go from being that free, uninhibited child to suddenly seemingly worrying 24 hours a day about how they look, what their friends think, and how they want to fit in?